Today's guests helped lead the Magicians to a state three-peat. Joining me now, it's the head coach of the Minot boys basketball team, Dean Winczewski. Coach, let's start off with the easy one. What makes Minot a dream job for you and your family being here, man?
It's one of the premier, if not the premier, coaching opportunity in the state. You look at the history, you look at the people that coached here. Especially Gene previous to me, there isn't probably a more respected or successful coach in the state. If there is, you'd have to look at like Steve Miller and Jerry Meyer down in Jamestown, and it's a relatively short list of guys, and to be able to come in and follow and have an opportunity to coach at a place like Minot has always been something I looked at. Now, I didn't go to Minot High. But I lived here for 23 years, and you look at what, this program is built upon, and you actually, to be honest with you, when I was in Dickinson, you're jealous of it. You look at it, and beating Minot was a big deal. It took us till my third year in Dickinson for us to finally beat Minot. We beat everybody else at least once by the time we got there, and you think, it's beating one school or whatever. But our kids took it seriously. I mean, it's a large school district. It's been immensely successful in basketball. Most state titles, most state tournament appearances, and just the opportunity to be a part of it has been awesome.
Even with all that plus side stuff, was there any part of leaving Dickinson that was difficult? I mean, you get 2 state championships, and you had to have some great players there too.
Oh, and it's not just that. The people there were phenomenal. The administration I worked with, from our principals to our athletic directors to the superintendents, were phenomenal. My assistant coaches have become some of my best friends, Greg Young and John Wilson and Calvin Dean, and you look at people like that, and just the people I worked with, because in a community the size of Dickinson, you have to rely on each other for support. You have to rely on each other to make sure that kids are multi-sport athletes. Not that that's not important in Minot, but especially in Dickinson, where you're dealing with a much smaller school population, basically half the size of Minot High. You need kids doing multiple things, and I believed we worked immensely. It was immensely important for us to work together, and we worked together extremely well, and that made for some very successful programs there, and the people there were awesome. And it was my wife's hometown, so leaving there was a challenge, because we left her family to come up here. And when the opportunity, when Gene announced his retirement, there was a little trepidation on her part to want to leave, just because she'd lived in Dickinson her whole life. And when she got here, and we've talked about it, she doesn't regret a second of the opportunity we've had to move to Minot, and the opportunities that we've been presented here. So, there were some things that were a challenge about it, no question. But, the move has been wonderful. I've got a great teaching job. Basketball's gone pretty well. So, I feel like it's been a good move for our family.
You said Minot hasn't had to have a ton of head coaches. That tends to be a good thing. Got like a Pittsburgh Steeler vibe. I don't know. But what were your thoughts on replacing a guy like Gene Manson? Been here for nearly 30 years, obviously done a lot. And even though you're a championship coach, I mean, look at what he did.
Oh, absolutely. It was probably more difficult than I'd imagined, because people were so used to the way Gene did things, and we have very different personalities. Obviously, I'm probably more demonstrative in how I go about things than Gene was, and so there was that change, and we went through a little time where we didn't have the top level athletes that we've had the last 5, 6, 7 years. So we had to put together a different game plan, and defensively we did things differently, and offensively it was a change, and so it took a little bit of time to be able to do that. The biggest part was the expectations probably built up in my mind for what people expected out of Minot High, because Gene was so immensely successful. It was a challenge in that way. But I really relied on some phenomenal people, from Pat McNally and Mitch Lundy in our administrative office to my assistant coaches. Bill Winczewski, when I first got here, was the guy that kind of kept me off the ledge, for lack of a better expression, to understand that it was going to take time. And Brian Hornick has been phenomenal. Our success in large part has been based upon those guys as well. We've got good coaches at younger levels, and to be able to replace a guy like Gene, and you can ask anyone that's replaced a coach that was as successful as those guys, whether it's Jordan Wilhelm down with Steve down at Bismarck, or Rich Hovland having replaced Jerry Wilson at Century, and you can go probably to a lot of different communities where people have had tons of success. I mean, think about what the guy in Linton's going to have to do when they finally replace Dan Carr and his 800 and some odd wins. It's not going to be just as easy as just saying, well, we're going to come in here and do this. Those guys have established a legacy, a personality, a way of doing things, and it's going to be, and like it was for me, at times there's going to be some bumps in the road, but you have to stay true to what you believe in.
If you didn't at least make the leap to apply for this job, what would you have felt? Would there have been a lot of what ifs in your head?
I think so. Because, number one, it's my hometown, and getting closer to family, and you look at unique opportunities in North Dakota coaching. It's one of those things where you gotta take them when they come, and I was very fortunate in Dickinson to have some really good players and some really good teams and kids that bought into what we were doing, so we were able to find some success down there. And it's like anybody, college coaches, you see it all the time where they look for the next step, and for me this was that next opportunity. And I think had I not taken the opportunity to at least apply and go through the interview process, it's one of those things where you always wonder what if, what would have happened, what could have we accomplished, and I don't have that. I still look back at Dickinson as and you wonder, what could have happened there, because we still have some great friends there and still have people that you're close to, and we go back and see, but again, I don't regret it. I certainly wouldn't change anything.
I want to break up your time with Dickinson before we get to your time with Minot. Another thing that had to work for your situation that you've mentioned before is having the good teaching post too. What kind of went into that and making it the right call there?
Well, it fell right in line. Gene was a history teacher as well, and I've been very fortunate. I've been given an opportunity to teach advanced placement classes, and when Gene left, I was able to move into the world history, and now they've actually got me teaching half of my schedule is teaching advanced placement classes. So I have kids that are driven every day in class, and we get to do a lot of cool stuff. And so really, I've got a pretty great, for lack of a better expression, gig here in Minot, in that, I get to coach basketball, which has been a dream of mine, and I get to teach classes and have a really unique clientele in my classroom. And so, I don't want to say I've been babied, but I think a little bit I have been, because like I said, I've kind of gotten an opportunity to do things that other people haven't gotten to with how driven my students are, and everything's fallen in line in that way. And so, what, it's been a good move, and I've had opportunities. I teach at Central Campus with the 9 and 10s, and I've had thoughts of maybe moving up to Magic City and see if there's U.S. history openings and anything. But this has been such a great fit down here. And the other part that's awesome is I get to know the 9th and 10th graders. So you get to build relationships with them, especially the basketball kids, because you see them every day as they get older. And then having Coach Horniker over at Magic City, he kind of makes sure that if there's any issues or things that we need to deal with students over there, we have that. So it's actually been a really almost perfect move as far as having people at each school. So, you talk about a great teaching opportunity, and I hope I do a good job, and I take a large amount of pride in what I do in the classroom. So, like I said, I've been pretty blessed to have everything fall the way it has.
Yeah, I did a bunch of AP classes in high school, including history, and what I kind of got the vibe was you were together every single day. It wasn't just one semester. It kind of grew, the classmates and the teachers even closer. I know you know pretty much everybody that probably walks through that school, but still, what kind of added relationship do you get when you teach an AP level course?
Well, the reason they're there is to have the opportunity to get, college credit, an opportunity to push themselves forward, to challenge themselves. And so it pushes you as a teacher, because, I've been teaching 20-some years now, and you get kind of into a rhythm of this is what I do and how I go about it. But with AP stuff, you run into having to teach the writing portion of it. It's not just the memorization and regurgitation that oftentimes history can be. And you got to be able to talk to the kids and get them to understand and they come in at such different levels of writing because they do. I mean, some kids can snap onto writing and understand it, and some kids are able to just memorize things. And so you really have to try and find things that work for each one of the kids in the class as far as little prompts and things to get them to understand what they need to do. And you're working towards a specific goal. It's not just getting through the class, but it's getting them prepared for the exam. And like I said, not to toot my own horn, but we had 23 of 42 kids get college credits this year, which is awesome for sophomores. And so you have kids that are going to have that benefit of getting a little bit of money off college, because if anyone's gone to college in the last few years, they understand that they aren't giving those credits away.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, wondering, like, did you have any kind of, stand and deliver moments where, like, the kids came a long way from day one? Because I remember I sucked all year in AP Calc, and then I somehow got the 4 on the exam, and I felt awesome about it.
Oh, absolutely, and you see that, and that's probably the thing that I get most excited about. And you have those moments where kids get it. Like I've gone home from school, and it's you feel like, oh my God, I had it. The kids were engaged, we were there, and then like July 15th, we just got our test scores back in from the AP exam, and I'm sitting here, and I got to call a few kids, and we had kids that. That I have on our basketball program, and I was excited to see them the next time they were in the gym, and it's a really cool thing because you recognize the amount of effort it takes to be able to be successful in the class, number one, and then to be able to get college credit. It's really a cool thing to kind of celebrate that success with the kids.
All right, so back to a little bit of basketball because they're student athletes, student first, but I just wanted to dive in on that for a little bit. When you moved to Minot, and you said kind of like the Dickinson, sure, the student count was way smaller, and that's kind of like the casual observation to that is like it'll be harder to find like good players because there's less kids. But you also said people had to kind of like pull together more at Dickinson. When you move to Minot and maybe there's just more people, I don't know how to define if there's more resources or whatnot. What was kind of maybe alleviated besides like people really having to, I don't know, pull and do that extra mile compared to like responsibilities in Dickinson? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Minot, and a lot of the work went to our former football coach, Barry Holman. Coach Holman did a tremendous job of setting up the weight room, and that's one of the things that I always had to do myself in Dickinson was open the weight room, make sure it was in there, and I did it because I wanted our basketball kids in there, and my wife was tremendously understanding that at night, 4 nights a week, I was opening the weight room, and I was there for a couple hours, and then after our kids lifted, they could play in the gym. But it was open for everybody here. They had a weight program established, and they've changed and they've adapted, and it's gotten better. And I think we're continuing to grow and evolve into an even more successful program. And obviously there's a number of opportunities in town. They didn't have those as much in Dickinson as far as the training facilities and opportunities that we have here, whether it's OPT or SOS or with Heilman's or wherever, even the Y and all the things that they have. They didn't have that. So, you come here and you take one of those things, kind of off your plate. And the other part is because of Gene was one of the first coaches to really have extensive camps, whether it was winter camps for young kids or summer camps, to really push kids getting into the gym. So when you got here, and I got here, it was a lot less trying to establish things. In Dickinson, they didn't have that level of consistent work and understanding the necessity to be in there in the summer. The previous coaches didn't really push that, and so myself and the girls coach, who took over a year for me, and I was actually his assistant the first year, he was the head coach with the girls in the fall, is we started to do that, and it really became something that we took a lot of pride in. And this summer, notwithstanding, because it's kind of mucked up, but in the past we have a lot of kids in the gym, and that's something that has helped us build our program. And I'm able to focus on that more, still keep tabs on our kids in the weight room and things of that nature. But that's one of the biggest changes, is Minot had such a well-established and evolving program for kids to work out and to get stronger. And the necessity is still there for us to get better. But we're getting to that point where we feel very good about where we are.
Yeah, how much do you enjoy just the process and the grind of getting better, whether it's getting the kids in the weight room or being in the practice gym? Because, like, when I come to your practices, you look pretty dead serious about it a bunch of the times.
and it is, and a lot of that is because it's like anybody's job. You know, you've got a list of things that you need to get accomplished during that time, and we've only got a short amount of time to be able to do that. So you go in at the mindset that we've got to fix this and this, and that's one of the things that I've got to get better at. Is number one is understanding there's only a certain amount of things that you're capable of fixing. And regardless of the amount of time, you want to focus on getting the most important things taken care of. And too much of what we've done, and again, you become very self-reflective as a coach, or at least I think we need to be self-reflective as a coach and a teacher and a parent and everybody else to kind of evaluate what we're doing well. Is we need to focus on what is most important, what things do we have to be good at, and really just hammer those things. And it's amazing that everything else kind of takes care of itself. If you handle the little fundamental things, it's a lot easier in that way. And you know, it's a great thing to see kids progress. And I still go back to one of the best seasons I've had in coaching. We were 4-9 at one point, and it was 2004, 2005. We were 4-9. We were really average. And we went on a streak at the end of the year where we beat Minot, who was the number 2 team in the West. We beat Bismarck, who ended up winning state that year. We had the number 1 team in the West down by 1 with 30 seconds left, and we gave up a basket and had a shot to win it. And without complaining too much, I thought we got fouled on it, but that's one of the things that you remember from so many years ago. We had chances, and then we ended up qualifying for state and beat the number 1 team out east. And you can look and say, Coach, God, you guys were 11-14, yeah, but we were playing really good basketball. The steps that we made and the rise that we had actually set it up for the 2007 team, because we started to grow and kids started to understand what the expectations were, because we were playing younger kids, and you could see that growth even the next year. And so it's one of those things that that's what you hopefully want to get out of this, because coaching is part of the teaching process. And I think too often we, myself included at times, forget that it's part of teaching. It's getting not only kids to understand to be better basketball players, but to accept responsibility, to have some humility, to be sacrificing for others, things that as you become an adult, hopefully you're able to carry over.
Is there a common area of the game where, say, you close down a typical after-school practice, it was a great full practice, the guys balled in, everybody was energized throughout the entire time, but even still as you walk off the court, you feel like, boy, I wish we had one more 20-minute period to do this?
Yeah, you never have enough time. I mean, and I don't think there's a coach that would sit here and say that, because you're always, as you set up plans, especially early in the year, you're setting up plans, but you're setting them up a few days in advance. They say, if I do this today, the next step is this, the next step is this, but then we've got to add this and do that. And so you have these lists of things that you need to get to, and it's all dependent on what happened that day. If you don't accomplish the things you needed to that day, well, then you got to go back and revisit them, and it pushes everything back. So, there isn't enough time, honestly, and we could probably say that in our personal lives. They're just, 24 hours just isn't enough. It's just making the best of the time that you have and understanding that, there's a progression with it. And some teams are able to progress very quickly, especially if you're dealing with teams that are extremely experienced and extremely talented. You can get away with some of the little flaws that you might have, and you got to go back and revisit them. Some teams that maybe more inexperienced may struggle a little bit talent-wise. You've got to take more time, and so those teams take longer to develop. And, I think too often we as coaches, and I think it's pretty consistent across the board, we only look at wins and losses as success, where it's actually the process of learning. And if you're going to be to your best where you have to be in March, it's got to be that step process. And I look back at last year, the things that we didn't do in March that cost us losing a 6-point game or whatever it was to Bismarck and a 2-point game to Dickinson, those are things that we didn't get taken care of in December and January. And so as we look to move forward and going forward with everything else, we're going to focus on the process. And it may cost us some games early in the year, but by taking care of the things, controlling what you control and getting better fundamentally and doing the things that are going to have an impact at the end of the year, you're going to be more prepared for the end. And again, it doesn't come down to talent, doesn't come down to, whether a kid can, score 50, if you're able to do the little things correctly as a team, you're probably going to find more success at the end.
So you have your blueprint to building a great team that has had proven results, Dean. At the same time, I'm curious, have you ever seen a player that you need to step out? You're like, holy crap, I feel like this guy is more balled in than I am about winning.
Oh, and there are kids that are extremely competitive, and if you can get other kids to buy into that competitiveness, and especially if that player is truly selfless, you can really build something tremendous. And one of those kids that was like that actually didn't start out that way, and I don't want to throw Justin under the bus, but I'm going to, because he's a great example of a kid that wanted to win and was successful. His sophomore and junior year, we won state titles. Justin Engg is the young man's name. And Justin came in as a senior and thought, okay, now it's my time. I'm going to be this, and I'm going to average this. And after about 5 games, he was struggling. We were winning, and things were going pretty well. We had other guys playing well. Keewan Johnson was doing his thing, and Peyton Lamore and Chandler and all the kids that we had to go around him. But we weren't. There was just something missing. And Justin wasn't successful, and we sat down and talked one day, and he was putting so much pressure on himself because he had these expectations for wanting to score these points and do all of this, and not to say that I know everything about psychology, but it worked for Justin, was saying you don't have to worry about scoring. You don't have to worry about going and getting 25. If you get 15 and you defend and you rebound and you force help and become a guy that's willing to kick the ball and get other people opportunities, we're going to get better and you're going to get better. And it took a little time, but he actually developed his role. And I mean, he still had a phenomenal senior year. He averaged 17 some points and almost had 1,000 for his career. And had he went the same path, he probably would have had 1,000 and had all those accolades. But he's one of the few guys in North Dakota history that has 3 state titles under his belt. And he bought into doing things as a team. And in fact, in the first round of the state tournament that year, he struggled. I think he had 4 points, 6 points. And in the state tournament, in the state title game, he only had 11 or 10, but other people were scoring, and Justin did other things to be able to create that. He wanted to win so bad that he was willing to sacrifice the big numbers and all the accolades that, he probably could have, like I said, had 1,000 points, but wouldn't have that title of being, a winner, that successful as he was in high school, and he was a huge part of it. And that's what I don't think people realize, because when we needed him to score, in the state semis that year, he had 18 points after halftime. He kind of went bananas a little bit, and he took it upon himself. And so, it was a kid that was driven, but also understood that for us to be successful, he needed to do certain things. And he'd be that kid that I think was wildly, passionate about winning, and really develop that attitude to be successful. And you're starting to see him be really successful down at Mary. He had a really good end of the year, and hopefully that continues, just not against Minot State. Go Beavers.
Yeah, oh, there you go. So as a program, or I'll ask you a follow-up on Justin. So who wins on a typical, one-on-one or horse between Justin Engg and Cassie Askvig, all the ones that go down to Mary?
Ooh. Well, one-on-one, I think Justin would. He's a little more athletic. Cassie is a friggin' phenomenal player. She's one of my favorite students. She was in my AP class, and she, unfortunately for her, she would probably agree that she's a lot like me. She was very driven, very hard on herself, and actually one day I had to tell her to relax, or she was going to end up like me with high blood pressure and horrible cholesterol and everything else. But
she's like you, pot calling the kettle black, or what?
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm telling her to relax, and probably should have been saying it to myself 50 more times than I was telling her. But I don't know if Justin could beat her in horse. She was such a shot maker and so good at finishing that he would have had a tough time beating her. Now his competitiveness would have helped him, but I don't think she's any less competitive. So those are actually 2 people. It's funny you bring Cassie up, but those are 2 people that I think really epitomize what it takes to be successful. And they're both probably going to be unbelievable successful in their lives because of how driven and their personalities.
I think Justin's competitiveness, once he gets to HORS, he might be in trouble. He'll get inside his own head maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
As a program that obviously either gets obsessed or just enjoys the process day by day of building, when do the accomplishments of each state championship during the three-peat kind of sink in? And then even after the third one, you look back, you're like, holy crap, we just did this 3 times, and this really doesn't happen much.
Oh, and that's part of what I've gotten better at. When I first got into coaching, I was constantly building, and I remember having a conversation with a great friend of mine who's the assistant football coach and head basketball coach down in Bowman. He was one of my assistants at the time in Dickinson, Nick Walker, and I said we had a preschool booster thing, and I said, yeah, we're just getting started, and we got to continue to grow. And he goes, where the hell do you grow from winning a state title? And my response was pretty simple: is we're not as good as we can be. We've got to continue. And I don't know if I understood how big of a deal that was. The first state title Dickinson had won, and we had great kids, and we were immensely huge, and whatever else. You figure out, especially as I've become a parent and a husband, and you recognize that everything has its place and you can compartmentalize everything. Hopefully I'm doing a better job of that anyway, is that you got to enjoy the successes as they come, because to be honest with you, they don't happen very often. There's a lot of great coaches in our state that have never won a state title. There's a lot of great coaches that have barely been to state, and you can look at Class B, and it's a challenge to be there, that have done great things, and just because of population or who's in their region or whatever else, never get that opportunity to hoist a trophy on a Saturday. That you've really got to enjoy each and every one. And part of that is what I've gotten to enjoy is enjoy the kids' reaction to be a part of it. And that's part of the things that's so frustrating, is you get to see how much fun the kids have, and you do ring ceremonies and you have this and everybody's smiling. And when you don't reach that, it becomes so frustrating, because you want everybody to have that feeling. Because you do, as you go through, as long as the seasons are, and you build relationships with kids, you want every one of them to experience that feeling of jubilation and excitement and everything else, that you kind of you really take it personal when you don't. And that's that's the hard part. So not only do you understand the success and you have fun with it, but then it becomes very challenging, because you are so invested in these kids that you want them to do so well, and when it doesn't work out the way they want and you want, that it's very emotionally draining. And I don't think I could coach another way. I don't think I can separate it completely and say, oh, the year's over, it's fine. You throw your heart into something and you put your passion into it, and if you truly enjoy it, you go about it, and you go about it with heart and passion, and you care about the kids, and you want what's best for them. And like I said, that's where you celebrate it, is you see how much fun the kids have with it, and getting to celebrate with them. And on the flip side, when it doesn't work out, it's hard to see kids suffering like that. I've coached a long time, and I've lost more games than I can count, and I've been fortunate enough to win some games, and you bounce back a little better. But at the end of the year, when you see kids like that, that makes it more challenging to be able to kind of to get back and get that emotion back.
Do you ever wish that you and with your Minot guys could have like the Class B March Madness type experience? I'm not talking about like the whole town's coming in, like the small town vibe, but instead like having another bracket where there's like so many more teams and steps to get through, because like the Class A structure is way closer to like the baseball playoffs compared to like March Madness for Class B.
Yeah, and it's kind of a weird dynamic, because the argument that everybody has, and I've gotten into it, like I used Dan Carr earlier, as I've gotten into Dan Carr at meetings with it about is that's such a big deal to make it in Class B, and it is, because having played it, you go through districts and you qualify, and you make it to regionals, and then you got to win 3 more games to make it to state, and then if you happen to do that, then you got to win 3 more, and it is. You literally could be playing 8 games, 9 games, so you're actually extending the March Madness by 2 games, probably 2 or 3 games.
A whole other bracket.
Yeah, I mean it's an exciting thing. The Class B tournament, without questions, is an amazing thing, but. One of the things about our West Region tournament especially, and I don't want to throw the East in there because they do it differently, is I don't know if there's a better 3-day tournament as far as quality of basketball than watching the combined West Region tournament. You go to that thing, and I mean, the Civic Center is full. The Event Center's full for all 8 games. on Friday or on Thursday, and all whatever 8 games on Friday, and all 6 games on. I mean, it is an experience, the emotional roller coaster that it is. And everybody always says it's so much fun. I said, be a coach in it for 1 minute, and you'll find out it's not that much fun. The only people that truly have fun are the people that are in the title game on Saturday. They punch their ticket and they can relax. Saturday is one of the worst days of the year as far as stress, because the success of your season, unfortunately, people view as that one day, no matter what happened, and if you have kids that struggle or the other team goes bananas, and I've been on both sides of it where we've had kids that have freaked out and other teams have struggled, and you ride that emotional roller coaster. It's hard, and you're playing some teams for the 3rd time. It's hard to beat anybody once, much less for the 3rd time, and which as much scouting as goes on in our league, it's a challenge, and it's hard. Both of them have their merit, and I don't know if it's any easier either side, but it would be interesting if there was enough teams in Class A just to say, okay, let's take everybody and let's just play the tournament.
Yeah, I think I could coach there for 1 minute. I would just sit on the bench and not say anything at all, not make any substitutions or calls, just sit there and let the time go by. I think I could do that. I don't know how it's going to shake out, but oh well. That's another good headline material. Coach Winczewski thinks the West region is the place to be when it comes to basketball. We'll just run with that, Coach. Thanks. So, Tell me a ballpark amount in a typical season for Minot basketball. Do you go through more game towels for Coach Winczewski or Diet Mountain Dews for Coach Horniker?
Oh, Diet Mountain Dew is not even close. I have 2 towels per year.
Really?
If we play well, I keep that towel, and once we play poorly, I switch towels. And for the most part, it's only 2. Usually one of different colors. I think one year I had black and gold. I think last year I had maroon and gold. And Coach Horniker is a Diet Mountain Dew junkie. Like it is amazing that he is as thin as he is. his physical shape, and he doesn't have high blood pressure, and his cholesterol is wonderful. I mean, it's with he should own stock in Pepsi Cola with as much as it's amazing. Like he brings a cooler on the bus with 2 or 3 Diet Mountain Dews.
He buys it local at Minot Pepsi or what?
Oh God, he must have stock somewhere, because it is an amazing thing to watch him. And that's, like I'm a coffee guy. I woke up this morning, had a couple of cups of coffee, and had a little breakfast, and got my day going. He'll wake up and have a Diet Dew.
Love it.
And it's amazing.
He's so healthy because it's diet soda, right?
Yeah, that's what it has to be. It has to be. As I sit and look at the Diet Pepsi on my desk right now, I say that. But yeah, it is crazy. I only go through 2, and I don't know where that started. It started when I got my first head coaching job was in Kenmare, North Dakota as the girls coach. And I brought a towel because I didn't want to wipe off a clipboard. And now it's just become one of those things that I have to have it. In fact, I left one. I didn't bring one to one game. And my wife was coming down to the game, and I called her panicked, and I said, you got to grab my towel, you got to bring it down. So now when I pack my bag at night and I get my basketball stuff together, I always make sure I got one in there. That way there's never that mistake that I lose my mind previous. Because as much as people say, superstition, all of this, there's a certain way that we as coaches go through to get ready for a game.
Yeah.
And that's part of it, just having that. I don't know if it's security or how, I don't know. It's just something that I've coached for 500 games now or so, and you just have that you're just used to having with you. So
you're like that girl that ruined Ray Liotta's 18-hour day in Goodfellas because she needed her lucky hat, and then he got arrested.
That's an odd reference, but it probably is as accurate as anything, to be honest with you.
I'll never coach without it. It's my lucky towel.
Yeah, exactly.
Learned a lot more about the Winczewski house's laundry schedule if you only have 2 towels per year, so that's nice. Also, I kind of open it up talking about you're dead set on being serious, getting the team better, but I talked to Jackson Gunville for one of these shows, and he says you get your chances to be a little sarcastic and biting at the guys during practice to lighten the mood. How do you pick your spots, and how do you get after them?
Well, part of it is that's just I know people don't believe it, and it's one of the things that I think is unique for me, because and I talk to one of my best friends. He's the head coach at Legacy about it all the time, and he's a lot like me. Probably not good for him to admit that, but we have essentially almost two personas. Like when I'm not coaching, I'm crazy relaxed and have so much fun and enjoy and coaching's fun for me. It's just that I want to do so well, and I want to, I'm ultra competitive, that if people just see that snapshot of me at a game, they would think that, oh my God, he's the worst. He's loud. There's a time and place for all of that. But one of the things that I think allows us to be, I don't know if the term is hard on our kids, but have high expectation for our kids, is they get to know us. And we spend so much time together in the off season, is they know that everything we're doing is geared towards helping them and our team get better and understand the expectations there are for them. Now, is there a better way to deliver that message? Absolutely. And I was better in practice than I was in games last year, and there's been years I've been better in games than I have been in practice. And, it's one of those things that you're constantly trying to improve upon. But you get that opportunity to really kind of be who you are. And people don't always get to see that. If people were coming to my classroom, yeah, I take my job very seriously, but I also like to have fun, and not to make people think I'm stranger than I already am. But I was just telling my wife and kids the other day that I've rapped in class before, because we talk about, writing as a class. In historical writing, you get to the point, you don't flower it up with adjectives and unnecessary adverbs and everything else. You just get to the point. So I was telling them that I rap, Vanilla Ice, Ice, Ice Baby, that you get to the point, no faking, and you don't flower it up, and people don't get to see the fun part of, hopefully, at least I think I'm fun, and the enjoyable part that I have to me, if they just see that snapshot, and the kids get to. We were just laughing last night. We had the gym opening. Kids were playing. I got to sit and talk to some of our kids last night. And like I said, that's enjoyable for me. These are great kids. They work extremely hard. They're driven. And there are very few kids in our school system, and probably you can throw Ned Rose and South Prairie and Ryan and our Redeemers, that you wouldn't look at and say they aren't great kids, I get the opportunity every day to work with them and get to know them, and that's such a pleasure for me. And hopefully I'm a better coach and a better parent because I've done this as long as I have now.
So your funniest jabs against the guys need to stay behind closed doors, or what?
Yeah, and they're nothing bad. It's just little, if a kid does something silly in a game, you try and make light of it so they don't put pressure on themselves, and you try and do things and a lot of it comes down to, I'll make fun of myself as well. I've got more flaws than anybody, and so many idiosyncrasies and everything else, is that you try and make it so that, it isn't, just, cruel, awful things. It's just things to try and get them to relax and understand that, you can have a little fun, and you can make fun of yourself at times. It's okay. We're all flawed human beings, and we're all trying to get better, and it's okay to laugh at ourselves.
Are you going to assign your students to watch Hamilton now that it's on Disney Plus?
God, I might. We do talk a little bit about revolutionary activities, and I'm actually a musical guy. I love going to musicals. That probably sounds strange to people if they, when they hear that, but it's always something I've wanted to see, and so I'm very excited to take a look at. To maybe take some time here one of these nights and go watch it, and I think it's something that could be worthwhile, to be honest with you, because it's a part of history that a lot of people don't get to see or hear about.
So you reference Vanilla Ice academically, like everybody else does, I guess. Is he your favorite rapper, or do you have a favorite rapper, and maybe on the more modern side? What are some of your favorite artists?
I'm an old school when it comes to rap. I listen to some Eminem, and what's funny is each year that I've coached, there's been certain songs that kids have listened to. My group in 2007 listened to Afro Man. Eminem was 2003. And you get a little bit of that, but I go back. I still listen to Young MC. That's how old I am. I still listen. And there's a videotape out there somewhere of John Wilson, who was my assistant and then the head coach in Dickinson after me. of us in Las Vegas in one of those karaoke booths, rapping Bust a Move. And I don't know where that video is. My wife's got it somewhere, and I'm afraid it's going to show up at some birthday party and just humiliate me. But, it's that. I don't listen to a lot of new school rap. I actually listen to still a lot of the 80s hairband stuff. We've got Sirius Radio in my wife's car, so when we go on road trips, we'll throw on 80s on 8 and mostly some of that. But, I listen to more country now than I probably ever have. And again, it's kind of whatever's on. I listen to whatever my kids listen to, and they don't listen to a lot of rap. They're probably not cool either, but it's kind of an eclectic taste.
I think they go by old MC nowadays, not young MC anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so you kind of harken back to some of your different teams and their musical tastes. I wanted to ask you this. When it comes to being in Minot, who would you put in your All-Minot starting 5 of players that you've coached? And if you want to be diplomatic, we'll give you a short bench.
Okay. Braden Lund would be our center. I think he had 2 injuries. He missed like 3 games in his 3 years of playing, and he would have broken the Minot high. He was 1 rebound away from breaking the record for rebounding. And what was amazing about him is he didn't care if he scored. Like he wanted to, obviously, like every kid does, but he would have games where he'd have 5 points and 18 rebounds. And he defended, he rebounded, and was phenomenal in that way. Key one would probably be, Key1 or Dakota. Holy cow. Both first-team All-Staters. Both Mr. Basketball candidates. Maybe we'd put them as our backcourt. That'd be hard to choose with which one would play. They did play together a little bit. They were so different in what they did. Dakota was such a shot maker. And Key1 made splash plays. And Key1 and Dakota didn't turn the ball over. He was so solid. Probably those 2 would be our backcourt. I gotta look. That's how old I am.
You got your forward slots left.
The other 2 starters, Jackson would probably have to be, we'd probably go with a 3-guard backcourt with him. He was just so solid at scoring the ball. He would have to change a little bit because both of those point guards demanded the ball so much and they both scored so well that it would change Jackson's game a little bit. He'd probably get more standstill jump shots too because they both forced help so much. So his job probably would have been easier in that way. And then I think I'd probably go, and again, this is a tough one. It would either be Justin Engg or Jesse Roberts would be our 4-man. I think Justin, because his accolades, but what made Jesse unique was that he didn't care either. I mean, when he needed to score, he scored, but he was one of our better defensive players. He rebounded. He was a good passer. And then, like I said, when he needed to score in the state title game, he had 5 threes, I think, and 17 points against Williston in 2016. And, he was crazy unselfish in that way. So, I think it'd be Justin, but then I'd have to probably put him, and Alex Shimke would be on a short bench for me. Andrew Crosby, my first year here, was an All-Stater. He'd probably be on the bench, a little undersized, really good lefty. And then probably Chandler Albertson would be the other one. So we'd go with a rotation of 9. And I feel bad because I didn't get to mention everybody, but we'd go.
I was going to say, Easton's going to be classmates with Jackson next year. Yeah. So, it's kind of a 2-parter question. You mentioned a lot about unselfishness with those guys here. First, when it comes to the backcourt, you said like some of the personnel would demand the ball. What's the difference between demanding the ball and using it in the sense that's good for the team, and then on the other side, like just hogging it? And then secondly, you said Braden Lund was able to buy in so well with rebounding in other parts of his basketball game. He's coming from having an awesome high school football career where he was a star and he scored a bunch of times. So how did he kind of level out and accept that role too? And he had to be excited for it.
Yeah, we'll start with Braden. Braden was he was, and you could put him in the category with Justin, and probably Ben Belinsky would have to fall in there too. They were so competitive, they were so driven to win that they would do whatever they had to. And Braden bought in because, our focus in games was to get him the basketball. I know that sounds strange because we had, Dakota Halverson was an all-stater, and we had, other kids that scored the ball around Braden. And, he didn't get the ball a ton because guards, as I tell our post kids every year, guards are selfish. I was one of them. I know they want to shoot it every time because that's what guards do. And, Braden didn't care. I mean, it wasn't a huge deal to go out and have big numbers. As his game evolved from a sophomore, as he starting about halfway through his sophomore year to his junior year to his senior year, he found that role that he knew that we wanted to get him the ball, and we were trying to get him the ball, and that was a huge part of why we were good. But he also understood his role was to dominate the paint and to go limit team second chances. And if he was going to get an opportunity at more baskets, he was going to get second chances on his own. And so, he really evolved into it. And we never had to have a discussion with him or any concern about selfish play. He wanted to win. And that was the biggest part of him, is he wanted to win. He didn't care what he had to do. The difference between demanding the ball and being selfish is very simple. Kids that are very good at the ball in their hands, especially point guards, you want them to have it. You have to trust them to have it. And because they demand it, because they're so good with it and they make such good decisions with it, that's demanding the ball, because you as a coach want them to have it. They need to have it because good things happen when they do. And they're able to get you organized into what you're supposed to be in and be able to get the ball to the shooters on time and where they need to catch it and shoot it. And, Dakota Halverson was phenomenal at that. And he probably didn't get enough credit because he did score and he did make shots, but he was so good at creating opportunities for other people. And then Kiwan was a pass-first point guard when he got here in all drive, and he actually made himself a great shooter, and he was a tremendous shooter by the time he left high school. But again, he was so good at getting and forcing help, and we had to have it in his hands. He was so good at making decisions and finding people, and Peyton Lamore and Chandler and Alex Shimke would all thank him because they could just stand there with their feet toed at the line and get wide open shots, And, a ball hog is a kid that, regardless of what's going on around them, they're shooting it. They're not making tremendous decisions. Their play is all based off what they're getting. And, are they getting their shots? Are they getting their points? And there's a tremendous difference in there. A scorer is somebody who's creating opportunities for themselves and others. A ball hog is somebody who is only worried about themselves and is forcing up bad shots. And you know what, it's hard to be successful with the ball hog, but your team can rise dramatically with that kid that demands the ball and makes great decisions with it. And those things are unique, and you don't have them every year. Deontay's getting into that role of understanding that. I think Deontay can be a tremendous point guard next year for us. He actually came from Japan before his freshman year and hadn't played with, I guess, a lot of other kids that could score. And so his game was predicated off him scoring. And so he didn't understand, finding people, driving kick, creating dump-offs to the post. And he learned kind of on the fly the last 2 years, and he has gotten so good. I think he ended up second in the conference in assists last year. Scored the ball extremely well, high shooting percentage, and he's going to be a kid that's still learning, understanding how to play off ball screens and still recognizing help, and that he can be, and he's also developed a more consistent three-point shot, that, he can be that kid that we have to have the ball in his hands. And we're fortunate that another kid that we'll have next year with him that's developed and also was in Japan for a while. It's crazy to think that all of our kids that are playing for us that have moved here with the base, this Rashawn Wilcox is also learning to understand that and being able to play with the ball in their hands and creating opportunities for others. And Rashawn's a tremendous passer and is, smallish like Deontay is. So it's going to be an interesting dynamic with being able to play them together at times, being able to give Deontay a break and be able to trust Rashawn on the floor. So
your idea of a selfish player reminds me just of like my co-anchor Joe Skrzyzewski at the Y. He's one of those chuckers, like George Costanza.
If you watch watch Seinfeld,
Yeah.
this is George Costanza. He's a chucker, absolutely.
Yeah, 100%. Wondering your different identities that we've covered throughout the interview, your seriousness and joking around as a coach. How does that translate to either holding court as a baseball umpire and then getting proper measurements with the Dwayne Carlson Stadium chain gang?
Yeah, I feel a little bit of every role, don't I? It's one of those things where about 6-7 years ago, Brian Hornecker asked myself and Eric Pearson if we were interested in umping, and we both kind of hemmed and hawed, and we ended up doing it, and you can make a little extra money, and I found out I really enjoyed it because, honestly, you get to sit there and you get to be around baseball, which I love. Huge Mets fans, excited for baseball to start. Not going to be able to see him play this year. I've gone 6 straight years of going somewhere to watch him, so I'm a little disappointed in that. But I love baseball. I think it's an awesome game. I think it's and to be a part of it now, I've really gotten more of an appreciation for it. But again, you're out there to be serious and obviously do a good job, but you get to be around high school kids. And again, the vast majority of when you're behind the plate, you get to know the catchers. You sit there and BS and have a good time and talk to them. And really, we haven't had a lot of coaches that have, Pat Arnson barked at me about a pitch, and I texted him after the game with the Vistas. I said, "You were absolutely right, Pat. That was a horrible call," and he laughed, after I said that. And you get that idea of the other side of it, and you get a different perspective then as a coach because, okay, they're doing the best they can. Have I ever missed a call in umping? With the answer is obviously, and that you do the same thing. And the chain game stuff. We're still waiting for our call. We're waiting for NFL or even Big Ten commissioners to see us and give us that opportunity to move up from high school. And no, that's fun. I get to sit there on a Friday night and watch high school football and sit there and BS with Brian and Scott Ivanoff and Gerard Cederstrom and just and it's also really cool because you get to see how other coaches interact with kids. And I think that's one of the things that's been really beneficial for me as a coach is you sit there and you watch other coaches and how they do things. And then you sit down and talk to people. And two of the people that probably don't get enough credit and for that is some of the best conversations I've had with coaches have been with Ken Disher, who's a legend in North Dakota coaching with swimming, and Jake Soper, who's hot on his heels to become the same thing. It's just being able to sit there and talk to them about dealing with issues that come up with kids and how they handle certain situations. And I've had some of the best conversations with those guys. And like I said, you get other ideas how to handle things by just sitting there and watching, people on the sidelines. And there's a lot of times you go, that's kind of a cool way you did it. You can also come back and say, I hope I never do that. And so you get a unique perspective. So like I said, not only is it cool to sit there and BS with some buddies, but you also get to be real close to the game.
Have you ejected less guys because you think in the back of your mind, boy, I give all these basketball refs hell? That maybe.
I honestly, I don't ever get too bent out of shape with coaches in this, and the vast majority of them are really good. And I'm also that guy that if a coach gets after me at all, I'm sitting there going, you're probably right. I probably did kick it. I haven't actually ever, I've ejected one person in baseball, and it was a player, and he said the magic word.
Oh, really?
I don't know what that word is. But other than that, I've had a couple of coaches that have kind of come unhinged and just kind of let it go. And I've never had the opportunity. I've never, I probably could have. There's two that stick out in my mind that I probably could have. And at the end of it all, it was pretty minor. Again, I'm a lot more relaxed than I've been with officials than when I first got into coaching. So, I was a stark raving maniac for a while. So it's like, well, what he did wasn't that bad. All
right, then we'll spin it around and ask, roughly, how many technical fouls have you gotten and ejections as a basketball coach?
I've had one for arguing a call in 20 years.
Oh, yeah? A T or
Yep.
being thrown out?
No, one technical.
Dang.
Yep. Part of it is I've coached so long now, and you build relationships with officials, and you know what you can and can't say.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you're not being crazy demonstrative and showing them up or using magic words, you can communicate really well with officials. You also, as long as I've done it, you kind of know that line as to what I can't cross that. And really the one I got was in Minot, and I'll never forget it because it is seriously the only one, and it was Paul Mellon, and I still give him hell about that. It's the only one I've gotten. Is we came up here in 2004, 2005, so it was December of 2004, and Rick Hedberg from Minot State was officiating the game with Paul. He remembers it, and there was a play down at the other end, and our kid was not fronting the post. Kyle Schroeder would not front the post, and the Dukeshire kid from Minot, Shane Dukeshire, was absolutely killing us. It was a close game. I think we were up, and all of a sudden he had 2 or 3 straight baskets. And our kid, so I'm standing on the wrong side of half court, so I'm wrong in that, and I'm yelling at our kid to front the post. So Paul comes over, and I'm walking back to the bench, and he taps me. And I turn around and I go, what happened? He goes, you're out of the coaching box. Now, this is back at the time with the seatbelt rule where there was no coaching box. And I said, Paul, there's no coaching box in high school. And he goes, you were yelling at me. I said, no, why would I tell you to front the post, Paul? And he goes, well, you were in front of their bench. And I said, that one I'll believe. And so whether it was justified or not, I guess it was, but that's the only one I've gotten. I haven't gotten one in Minot. I got one in Dickinson. I have gotten 2 for book problems, for not having the right number in the book. Mm-hmm. So, but I haven't gotten them for arguing. That's one thing that, coaches always say, God, you get a technical to fire your team up. Why should you have to? If your kids aren't excited to play a high school basketball game, getting a technical is certainly not going to change that.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, I'll be able to do my homework better on that for the rest of the afternoon and see if that's all fact, Dean. But
I'll give you the scorebooks. You're more than welcome to look at them. I got them all.
I don't have that much time on my hands anymore, but now that sports are finally somewhat back. So, hey, man, this is awesome, and I appreciate your time a lot. Thanks.
No problem, Ben. Thank you.